Welcome to this video on O.J. Simpson's trial of the century. This highly publicized case captivated the nation and had a profound effect on American culture and the legal system. The O.J. Simpson trial redefined the American courtroom and became the most watched criminal trial. It brought forensic science into the public imagination and highlighted a collision of race, policing, celebrity, and media focus. Orenthal James Simpson was a former NFL superstar, actor, broadcaster, and national icon. He was accused of the murder of two people, despite his charismatic and beloved public image. The prosecution team, led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden from the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, focused on a theory of jealous rage. They argued that Simpson murdered Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, leaving a trail of significant forensic evidence. The defense team was known as the Dream Team. Johnnie Cochran was the lead attorney and strategist, with Robert Shapiro and F. Lee Bailey assisting. DNA experts Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, along with appeals consultant Alan Dershowitz, were key members. The prosecution's theory detailed O.J.'s history of domestic violence, suggesting a motive of jealousy, control, and rage. They relied on overwhelming physical and DNA evidence, arguing that his attempt to flee in the Bronco suggested guilt. Key evidence included blood drops leading from the murder scene and Simpson's blood in his Bronco. Nicole Brown Simpson's blood was found on his socks. A bloody glove was found at Simpson's estate, and DNA evidence showed astronomical probabilities of a match. Johnnie Cochran's defense theory was a, quote, narrative revolution, focusing on attacking the police rather than the victim. He argued the LAPD was corrupt, evidence was mishandled, and Detective Mark Fuhrman was racist. This shifted the jury's focus from O.J. to the system. The defense aimed to create reasonable doubt. They claimed police planted evidence to frame O.J. Simpson, and that the crucial chain of custody for DNA evidence was broken. They suggested contaminated DNA and a fundamentally biased investigation compromised the prosecution's case. To counter the prosecution, the defense sought to humanize O.J. They presented Simpson as a loving father, a victim of police misconduct, and a black man targeted by a racist detective. Cochran connected the case to historical issues of race, including Rodney King, the LAPD's history of brutality, and systemic racism in Los Angeles. This was framed as a historical argument, rather than merely using a, quote, race card. The prosecution relied heavily on forensic DNA evidence, but Cochran's defense team utilized a three-part counter-strategy. They argued contamination and mishandled samples by the LAPD, claiming improper storage, and that untrained officers collected critical evidence at the scene. The defense focused on DNA degradation, arguing that samples sitting in the heat, along with moisture and bacteria, compromised their integrity. Improper storage and handling of evidence were key components of the defense strategy. Detective Fuhrman's racism created a credibility crisis for the prosecution, making the idea of planted evidence plausible. The defense argued the LAPD had a history of framing black suspects, shifting the focus to police misconduct and framing Simpson. The iconic glove moment occurred when the prosecution asked O.J. to try on the key bloody glove, but it did not fit. Johnnie Cochran famously used the line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," providing jurors with a simple, memorable decision rule. Cochran's cross-examinations were calm and rhythmic, employing a surgical technique that devastated prosecution witnesses. This consistent, artistic approach was used to masterfully shift the jury's focus away from the defendant. Detective Mark Fuhrman's cross-examination proved disastrous for the prosecution. After denying using racial slurs under oath, tape recordings contradicted his testimony. Fuhrman then invoked the Fifth Amendment when asked about planting evidence, destroying his credibility. The defense team successfully dismantled the chain of custody for forensic evidence. Experts exposed sloppy lab work, framing DNA evidence as unreliable for the jury by focusing on contamination and improper storage. Cochran's master narrative forced every witness into his story centered on corrupt police officers. The defense framed the case around a broken justice system, positioning all evidence as unreliable or mishandled. The majority black jury distrusted the LAPD and viewed the case through a lens of race and policing. Cochran skillfully understood these jury dynamics, while the prosecution failed to grasp the perspective of the sequestered jurors. Cochran's closing argument was a masterpiece of moral framing, using powerful rhetoric and rhythm. It connected the case to a historical context, giving jurors a memorable rule for their decision. Cochran's closing arguments emphasized that the LAPD framed Simpson Furman was racist and the evidence was contaminated. He summarized that the prosecution's case was built on lies, which he sealed with the glove line. On October 3, 1995, the jury delivered its verdict. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty on both counts. This decision immediately split the American nation, turning the highly watched trial into a profound cultural fault line. The O.J. Simpson trial is the most studied in American history. It profoundly reshaped media coverage, race relations, and celebrity culture, while also transforming policing and the use of forensic science. Johnnie Cochran became the world's most famous trial lawyer, symbolizing Black legal excellence and mastery of narrative. He became a great champion of police accountability, establishing the foundation of his modern legend through the O.J. trial.